Alright, this is a quick wrap-up film to cover a few of the final kind of things that I encountered as I got to the construction drawings, which are now complete according to what I arrived at, and those can be altered easily enough. So the first thing I did, once I got all these measurements together, the interior space added up to 1,820 square feet, which is substantially more than the website and more than it was a little while before I made these final measurements, which gave us 1,456 permitted, and deducting that garage, which left 1,000 permitted. So as I told you on the phone, I increased this to 25 by 40, this garage. And a couple of more things to consider then. Driveway A, which is everything beyond this is all new driveway here. This pink outline is new driveway. That's 675 square feet. All of this is kind of cracked and so forth. And so if a person right here at the break is where it gets good, where it slopes down right here, if a person wants to replace that, that's another 810 square feet. Just so you know. Also, I have moved this 2 feet off of this patio. We need to move it far enough that when we dig this trench, a person can get in there and lay that block. So I moved it up 2 feet, and I finally probably moved it over to the north a little bit, maybe another 8 inches. In terms of the height, this is what the final measurements worked out using method 1 for an average or a mean height 12 foot 6.5 on the existing building, which means we can't exceed that, or we could not exceed that. I tried 512 and I was still at 13 feet, just to match your existing 512 pitch, and I went to 4.5 12 and I was still at 12.9. So I did have to drop it back down to 412, which still we don't have to put ice and water shield over the whole thing. But by the time we come in here, you have to come up here about 5 foot with the ice and water shield, because that has to extend 2 feet to the interior of these walls. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 5 courses here, and you don't have to get too crazy with this land at this end. This is the alignment with the existing building. It's pretty close, and this is looking from this side to show this is see here, remember when I was up there we measured 34 feet or so before this really started falling off. So this should situate pretty well, and you can see even with this is what I kind of calculated, and there's your 32 inches below grade at this corner. And this is this side, maybe that's pulled up just a little bit to get that 3 courses below, and then this. So it takes 5 courses to do this, it looks like. I mean, you could up here, if you wanted to come back so far, you could step it down to the 5 about halfway back. So yes, I moved it to the right, to the north, 5 or maybe 7 inches, 8 inches in addition. So I now have it overlapping that patio by 8 feet, down from the 12 originally planned. But here is the discussion now about this garage and its interior space and the future, as quickly as I can make it. So this is a detached garage. Now there is the sink, and I have it, that was dead center on that wall. I've moved it over 2 feet, which puts it just to this side of the garage door opening. And this garage door opening is called out by this 4 feet that's necessary here. But then when you think about putting a toilet or a future bath, either now or further in the future, this is one of the bare minimum baths or half baths that a person can use. It's only 3 feet wide and maybe 6 or 7 feet long. And so presumably this plumbing is either going to come out of the floor or it's going to come out of this wall. I'm not sure how that's going to be plumbed. But if we put the wall, if it comes out of that wall, and then we figure that our new bathroom wall comes out close to that, and then you build the smallest half bath you can, you end up with something like this. And then, but when we start talking about in the future changing this into a mother-in-law suite, if that would become necessary, then we have to start. There's a few considerations that should be taken into account as you build or before you build. in terms of some of this planning, particularly in terms of some of the windows, perhaps. So if we pretend that we're going to try to turn that into a mother-in-law suite, and I haven't gotten crazy with this at all, put in the minimal full bath, which it gets a little wider to give some space in front of that water closet, and that's only a 4-foot shower shown in there. But just to horse around with this a little bit and think about it, for one thing, if this half bath is here based on the plumbing, because we have to put this rough in now, or we should put this rough in now, then probably you should put a window on this wall in case this bath ever does get enclosed, so that this isn't one of these funky baths without a window. And then we get into this sort of planning. Does this become this seems to make sense, I don't know, but I only took a few minutes with this just for these particular considerations. So if that's the kitchen area up there at the top, do you put a window there? Do you plan on where that sink's going to be, and do you rough in for that sink now, along with the rough in for the toilet? And if you want to make that as large as possible in the future, you can come over about this far toward this garage door. And this is also something, if this can be planned, then these corner locks ought to be put into these walls for that in advance, at least those two. So there's the sink in the place that I'm calling it out as, and its relationship to the rest of this. And going back to this just briefly here, we need to know, because we need to know where we're going to put this rough in here. But thinking about the future, if this becomes like a dinette and the kitchen's here, is this the kind of windowing we want on that wall, or do we want something like this? And these are just extra windows back here. I don't show those on the building plans. I am showing this one at this location on the building plans as they exist now, and I'm still showing these two on this wall here. Here's one more little thing about this is, if this were to happen, even if just this wall were to be put in, probably, well, they would want more than that. But in any event, if that happens, then your detached garage only becomes 540 feet. And I mean, the upshot of all this math here is that you could actually, if this were done, you could actually push this out to 28 feet deep. But I think you're probably just going to run with this, and this is what the current building plans are showing right now. Something like this, but I don't show that half bath. And this was the old one, the 30 by 40 with the 312 pitch, and then we went to the 25 by 40, and that's a 512 pitch, and there it is dropping to 412. And that was that extra 3 feet if a person wanted to, could push out that way. And these are the building plans, which I'll be sending over to you with the link to this film here in a few minutes. There may be something that I've missed or needs added yet, but I've tried to account for everything. I don't know if I can zoom in on here. Let's see. One thing down here at the bottom, these walls are going to be sitting up off the garage floor, even with this slope, and they hang out over these walls by about 7/8 of an inch or so. Maybe you can push them out to where that's 1 inch, but somebody's going to have to put treated blocking down here if we want that drywall to extend all the way to this floor. I don't think there's anything else really to say about it, except that this has been done. I'm not sure you wanted me to put this actual contractor on here, but let me know. And let me know if you find any other errors or omissions that are obvious. Otherwise, I will talk to you soon. Thanks very much. This was fun.